This is Republic and you're watching This is Exclusive with me, Shavan Sen. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight on This is Exclusive, we put the focus on what many have been talking about. Is there a pattern that is essentially emerging in the way the West has been reporting about India and in particular about the Prime Minister and this elections? If you were simply to go by what the West essentially has been reporting or the Western media has been reporting, then we are a country which has been indulging in extrajudicial killings. Doesn't really end there. We are also a country which hates our minorities. Also the fact that siding with Russia at a time when the Prime Minister had made it abundantly clear that this is not an era of war. Something that did not find much resonance within the Western media. The question that we are asking tonight, why so? Why look at India from that particular prism and not look at Naya Bharat? How exactly have we been tackling the challenges all this while? And why shouldn't we be credited for what we have been able to achieve? And more importantly, the message that we are sending to the global community, that it is time to live in peace. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight on This is Exclusive, from this very Republic studio, we have a very special guest joining us. We'll also put the focus on what's really happening in Kyrgyzstan, where Indian students were beaten up. We'll try and reach out to one of the Indian students who are going through a very, very difficult time. But before we bring in our special guest, first take a look at the headlines we're tracking at this hour. UK journalist Sam Stevenson, exclusive on Republic, says Western media, quote-unquote, inundated by unfavorable narratives about India. Delhi police says crucial electronic evidence of the assault gate are missing. Suspect accused Bibhav Kumar's phone has also been formatted. Ahead of the Phase 5 battle in Baramulla, twin terror attacks strike Shopian and Pahalgam. Former Sarpanch Ejaz Ahmad killed as BJP condemns Pakistan-sponsored terror attacks. Ahead of the polls tomorrow, Jammu and Kashmir National Conference leader Omar Abdullah once again reiterates that it is time to have a dialogue with Pakistan. Also says the BJP's electoral game this poll season has been unsettling and unstable. Indians caught in the crossfire amid mob violence in Kyrgyzstan. Reports say things are under control, but Indians are still advised to not step out of apartments and hostels. We've been talking about a pattern that has essentially emerged this elections, particularly that has been driven by the Western media. If you were simply to go by what the Western media really claims, then democracy is in the dustbin. This comes at a time when we have essentially spoken about the challenges that India has faced and how we have been able to overcome. Not only that, there are examples that the world really needs to look at. Look at the digital payment system that India has been able to put in place. But tell me, ladies and gentlemen, is there a single article which basically talks about why there is a need for a digital payment, not just in India, but across the globe? These are some of the issues that haven't ever been highlighted. What possibly could be the reason why the Western media really does not really look into all these issues, rather would be accusing India of extrajudicial killings? And if that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, would you really ask that question of United States of America when they had carried out killings in other countries? Why is it that you would not ask that question? Why is it that you would not ask this question of the United Kingdom when they have carried out several covert operations? Tonight on This is Exclusive, we have a very special guest. But first, listen in how this was actually countered by the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar.
Do they want to influence us? Answer is yes. They do want to influence us because many of these countries feel that they have influenced the world for the last 70, 80 years in the world order, and Western countries actually feel they influenced the world for the last 200, 300 years. So are they willing to, how do you expect someone who's been in that position to give up those old habits so easily? So there's a natural desire, because that also answers the gentleman at the back. Why are these papers, which you mentioned, why are they negative in India? Because at the end of the day, they are seeing an India which is not, in a sense, compliant or with their image of how India should be. That they want, they want people, or they want ideology, or they want a way of life, or a social, as they say, people like us. They are looking for that class of people really to rule this country. And I think they're disturbed when the Indian population feels otherwise. And that has been today actually a big part of the debate between us and the world. You can say the world really means your Western countries and the Western media.
In fact, we are quite privileged to have Sam Stevenson. He's with the Daily Express, and interestingly is here in India to cover the elections. And many of you perhaps may have also gone across some of the reports that have been put out. In fact, a short while back, before he came into the studio, Abhishek, I did actually go through some of the articles, and it was quite a surprise, because if you really compare what we have seen in the other legacy media, particularly in the West, one wouldn't say that we are angered by it. We are deeply saddened by the fact that why is it that our voice would not be heard. Sam, first let me begin by asking you, your experience being in India, because you would also be facing a lot of accusations right now, particularly because you've had several of your colleagues here in India who've been reporting. They've been saying that, look here, it's very, very difficult to report from India. That's a pattern across most of the legacy media correspondents based out of New Delhi.
Look, I can't speak for individual media organisations, but I can tell you this. The reality that I am seeing on the ground does not appear to match with some of the stories that we're seeing coming out of the Western media. What we're seeing is a vibrant, free and open democracy. People are celebrating this democracy. We're seeing people out in the streets. It's a festival. It's a carnival atmosphere. It's exciting. We need to be putting across the vibrancy of this place. And these are the reports that I am having. So all I would do is I would gently urge any of these Western media outlets to join me and come and see what I've seen on the ground. And let's report what we see. Let's report the vibrancy of this place and actually, bring it to the fore.
You make a mention of, in your article, real Muslim, real Sikhs, referring to the fact that perhaps there is a tendency within the media to select whom are we really talking to. So, would you like to elaborate? Of
course. Okay, so I had a very interesting conversation with Indrayani Bagchi, who's from a think tank called Anata. And she said to me that whatever you see or hear in India, the opposite is also true. Now, this is a very famous phrase, I believe, by a British economist who visited during the 60s and the 80s, from the 60s to the 80s. And what that actually spells out is that India is a complex and pluralistic place. There is a slight tendency, it would appear, to put all faiths, all Muslims into one box, if you like, when really the reality is this is a specific section of the Muslim community that's being referred to in certain instances. And actually, there's a wide pluralistic overriding sense here in India of all sorts of different cultures coming together. And actually, it's about trying to speak to people of all backgrounds, all ages, all professions, to try and really understand what's going on here.
Before I bring in Abhishek, also a quick question, because this is something that the West needs to hear. Did you actually come across accounts of minority persecution? Because that's the allegation that has been leveled against India, and in particular the government, that this government has indulged in what the West believes minority persecution.
I would say actually the opposite, because we were lucky enough to visit the Golden Temple, for example, and where we were welcomed in. This morning I went to a Gurdwara myself, and a Sikh gentleman came up to me and actually thanked me for being there. He said, look, your presence here is welcome, you are most welcome here. So I actually believe the opposite is true. I believe that people of all minorities, all cultures are welcomed in to share in the spirituality and shared values that this place has.
All right. So picking up from there, Aman, you are a colleague of Sam and you have been traveling with him. And just share with us whose brainchild was this that you come to the ground and maybe essentially for the British audience and British readership, you sort of profile India's elections so that they have a fair and a better picture of what's really happening on the ground.
Indeed, look, I think I set up something called the Global Britain Centre, having campaigned for Brexit in the referendum a few years ago. And the reason I did that is because I want to build a global Britain that is at ease with itself at home and also a beacon of hope overseas. And we've been working hard to have the Indo-Pacific tilt in the UK, and India should be at the centre of it. So I've been working very closely with my friend Sam and the Daily Express group for the last few months to try and plan something like this, to make sure that, look, I know what India is like as a vibrant, free, open democracy, but it's about time that we took notice of that in Britain as well. Because you know what? Over the next 3 decades, India is going to be the most important friend and partner of the United Kingdom, even more so than the United States. And that's not just me saying that. That is the former business secretary of the UK saying that, Jacob Rees-Mogg. But that's why we need to be here. We have a shared heritage, shared languages, shared values, and a shared future. But that's for us to make.
All right. Sam, do you get any sense of dictatorship, so to say, on the ground when you watch these elections? Did you see polling happening? Did you talk to people and then come to a conclusion?
I have to say quite the contrary, actually. We were lucky enough to fly to rural Punjab, to Amritsar, to join the campaign trail. And actually, whilst we were there at Ambassador Sandhu's campaign, we witnessed communist detractors, a small group of them, but they were making their voices heard. They were shouting incredibly loud. They had a PA system, and it was almost drowning out the ambassador's speech. But actually what we saw was he was then responding to them during the speech, and this to me really sums up the vibrancy of this democracy. People are able to turn up to a BJP event and voice their opposition to it in a free and open way, and that's the spirit of democracy.
All right, so Aman,
Yes.
Guardian said that if Modi comes for the 3rd time, it would sort of compromise democracy,
Well,
and they have been taking this position, in fact, since 2014.
I mean, look, let's be honest. I think the Guardian has said that every election that Prime Minister Modi has won and stood for. But look, let's look at it this way. When I campaigned for Brexit, it is not a result that the likes of the Guardian liked, because we had a lot of metropolitan liberal elites telling the common working class white people, you don't know what you've done. You don't know how this all will pan out. You've made the wrong decision. So these are people in high authority, places of power and influence, and they don't like the result. They cannot stand that a chaiwala can rise up from nothing with the world's biggest political party through the ranks and be elected as a prime minister of 1.4 billion people.
All right.
Simple as that.
All right, Sam, so last question to you. When you go back, what are you going to tell your audience, your readers, about your experience of having seen Indian democracy in action up close?
Look, that's a great question, and I'd love to bring back some of the lessons that we can learn from India. And that can be things like the spirit of free enterprise here, things like, as you mentioned earlier, the UPI payment system, which is not being promoted in Britain at all. I'd never heard of it, for example. These impressive infrastructure projects that we're seeing being rolled out across the country at a rate of knots. We can't even build a train track. We can't even build a railway line, which is frankly embarrassing. We had to shelve HS2, which was a major planned railway line between Manchester and London. That was recently canned, or a large part of it was. Look, we need to get back to our enterprising spirit that we're seeing all around us here. Again, going back to Varanasi when I was up there, I saw young children aged between 4 and 10 years old selling the Dewa flowers for the fire veneration ceremony, but also gentleman in his 80s, an old man selling the flowers. And that to me really represents the broad spectrum of people who are just willing to get up and go, and that free enterprising spirit. And I think that's something that I'd like to try and take home with me, because it's something that I think we perhaps don't have anymore in the UK.
All right.
I'll just take a quick question from Aman also with regards to this pattern that we've been talking about. And many a times we wonder that if we are talking about objective journalism, how is it that the West completely misses it out? And it's just not about India. In several issues, we have seen that. Look at what has happened with the Russia-Ukraine war.
Yes.
Somewhere down the line, it has resulted in a situation where the whole picture hasn't really emerged. What perhaps could be the reason?
I think, well, look at it this way. There's something called the Free Press Index or something along those lines. It's something completely palmy. I think it's about time that was ripped up and we had an actual audit of where the world's free press is. And it's certainly not the biased and twisted narratives that we see from so many across the West. Look, there's a certain agenda, and we all know where it's being pushed from. These are the same groups of people that have tried to undermine our democracy in Britain because they don't like the outcome of Brexit. It's the same thing with Prime Minister Modi. They do not like the man in charge, and that's what we're facing. Right. Look, it's a very simple thing. For us in global Britain, India matters because Modi matters to India. Quite simple.
Well, thank you very much, Aman, as well as Sam, for
having us.
Coming to the Republic Studios, and all the best as you continue with this journey. We're really hoping that this will send across a message. And we've always been saying this, Abhishek, that we are a country work in progress. But having said that, look at us in a holistic manner. Thank you very much for taking out the time. Also getting in some more breaking news with regards to Iran. Let's just take you through some of the details that are emerging right now. This is with regards to the Iranian president's chopper, which has made a hard landing. Some more details also trying to get in. Rescue efforts have been deterred due to the poor weather. We'll just put out some more details with regards to what has happened so far. The Iranian military drones, which have also taken off, is what we are being told right now as the rescue operation is underway. That's the latest coming in. Tehran Times has also reported saying that President Raisi's chopper has not been found. We're quoting Tehran Times on this, where they're saying that a rescue operation is being carried out to find the helicopter. Iranian military drones have taken off to determine the exact location of President Raisi's helicopter. At least 3 choppers were part of that fleet is what we are picking up at this point in time. We'll see if we can get some more images right now. The state news agency has confirmed, and we are quoting the state news agency, that President Raisi was on board the helicopter and the rescue operation, or the rescue teams in particular, are yet to determine the location of the accident due to poor weather conditions. That's the latest that's coming in with regards to more details that are now emerging. Now, also, another news agency now reporting that the helicopter that was carrying the Iranian president had a hard landing. This has been confirmed by an Iranian state television. He was traveling to Iran's East Azerbaijan province, is what the state TV says. And the incident took place in a city on the border with Azerbaijan, which is about 600 kilometers away from Tehran, is what we are picking up. A story that is developing at this point in time. We'll try and get you more details in a short while from now. Well, in fact, more details now also coming in with regards to the rescue operation that has been carried out. The rescue teams are trying to locate where exactly this has taken place. Some initial reports suggest that this was closer to the border area of Azerbaijan, is what we are picking up. As part of the fleet, the foreign minister was also present, is what we are getting to know at this stage. Remember, this is a developing situation given the fact that this incident has taken place just a short while back. That's what we're picking up. Let's shift our focus to the other story that we are getting to you tonight. Well, the situation in Kyrgyzstan appears to be quite volatile. In particular, the Indian students, Indian medical students have been at the receiving end. In fact, there are reports that are coming in, not just Indians, but also Pakistanis that have come under fire. Important to point out here is that the situation is still being monitored by the Indian embassy in Bishkek is what we are being told, while an entire rescue operation is also being carried out. We'll just try and show you some of the images that we've been able to get some from the Indian medical students who are currently based in Bishkek. Also, we'll try and get you more details coming in from an Indian student who's likely to join us on this broadcast of This Is Exclusive, getting you more details as to what really has happened in Bishkek and how it all started.
Mob violence has gripped parts of Kyrgyzstan and Indians have been caught in the crossfire. South Asians, especially Indians and Pakistanis, were targeted by the violent mob. This has prompted the Indian embassy to issue warnings. Indian nationals have been advised to remain indoors and in touch with the embassy. Indian students in Kyrgyzstan's capital, Bishkek, face threats from locals. The violence erupted following a brawl at a hostel between locals and foreign students, including Pakistanis and Egyptians. Videos of the brawl have gone viral on social media platforms. Indians are stating that they have been stuck inside their apartments for 48 hours now and are relying on good Samaritans to provide groceries and day-to-day needs.
That's all that we could pack in this edition of This Is Exclusive.